In October, folklore explorer visited Egypt, and one of the deities that I spent some time visiting statues and saw many carvings of was the goddess Sekhmet. So I wanted to tell you her story, and what I found was there are several stories around the myth behind Sekhmet and what actually happened. So there are links between her turning into the goddess Bastet, who looks like a household-sized cat, but she's obviously a little bit wilder than that. Or there's the story where Sekhmet was actually Hathor and turned into Sekhmet and then back into Hathor. So this is coming straight from the Egyptian Museum. Beneath the scorching gaze of the sun god Ra, there rose Sekhmet, the lioness-headed goddess, fierce and untamed, sent forth by Ra to punish humanity for its disobedience. Her wrath was as relentless as the burning desert wind, sweeping across the land with the ferocity of a lioness in hunt. Her heart was filled with bloodlust, and no soul was safe from her rage. Yet as the earth trembled beneath her, Ra, fearing the destruction of all creation, devised a plan to tame her fury. In a moment of divine cunning, Ra poured rivers of red beer across the land, its hue so crimson it resembled blood. The mighty Sekhmet, thinking it the blood of her enemies, drank deeply, her thirst unyielding, and as the potent brew coursed through her, her wild spirit dulled, and her rage ebbed away, replaced by drowsiness and peace. When she awoke, the wrathful destroyer had transformed into the gentle healer, her eyes soft and serene, her heart full of compassion. Thus Sekhmet became not only the protector of kings and warriors, but a goddess of restoration, embodying both the power to destroy and the grace to heal. The early evidence of Sekhmet emerges during the Old Kingdom, which is 2686 to 2181 BC. However, they believe that veneration truly flourished towards her during the golden age of a new kingdom, which is 1550 to 1070 BC. Especially during the reign of Amenhotep III. He was enchanted by her divine power, and he seemingly commissioned countless statues to stand sentinel within his mortuary temple at Karnak. And I have seen the number of Sekhmet statues at Karnak. There's a good number still there, and sadly quite a few have disappeared around the world to other places, and you do wonder whether they should be returned back to Egypt, which is where they belong. Amenhotep III, through these sacred effigies, felt her presence was invoked not only as a warrior goddess, but also as a bringer of healing, revealing her dual nature as both destroyer and restorer. At Karnak, these statues of a feline goddess stood in solemn guardianship, where sacred rites were performed to appease her fiery nature and invoke her healing grace. Sekhmet may have evolved from an earlier goddess known as Shesmetet, with both deities sharing similar traits and characteristics that suggest a continuity of worship and symbolism. Shesmetet, whose name translates to the female powerful one, was a lioness-headed goddess associated with war and hunting, much like Sekhmet, and she was often depicted as a fierce protector and warrior, embodying the primal strength of a lioness. Egyptian beliefs evolved, and it is likely that Shesmetet's characteristics were absorbed into the figure of Sekhmet, particularly as the concept of divine kingship and the need for a powerful, wrathful protector became more pronounced. While Shesmetet was primarily linked to the hunt and warfare, it is possible that Sekhmet's role expanded to encompass not only destruction but also healing, a duality that may have emerged as the mythology surrounding her grew more complex. Sekhmet is known to be the consort of Ptah and a guardian of the pharaohs. This took on an even greater importance, symbolising the balance between chaos and order, while Shesmetet's earlier more singular focus on destruction was integrated into this broader divine role. Over time, the worship of Shesmetet may have evolved into the worship of Sekhmet, with her lioness form and martial aspects retained, but her mythology enriched to reflect the changing religious landscape of ancient Egypt. This progression highlights how Sekhmet may be seen as a natural evolution of Shesmetet, embodying a more expansive, multifaceted goddess. There is also writing suggesting that the two sides of Sekhmet, that when Sekhmet is calm and approachable, she is turned into Bastet. And then another resource I read suggested that the calmer side of Sekhmet would be Hathor. And that suggests there are a number of different stories aligned with who she is. But one thing is clear, that Sekhmet does deliver a worthy punch, and you do not step into her space without considering what you're going to be conversing with her about. One thing that I discovered when I was looking at Sekhmet and Bastet is that despite the Egyptians having feline goddesses, they didn't actually revere the cats that these goddesses looked like. But they did have areas where they would mummify cats because they felt it was a form of offering to the goddess Sekhmet and Bastet. And there are a couple of temples in Egypt where there are large numbers of cats still that are fed by the guardians of the temple. That might be something that you might want to have a look at the different sides to the goddesses or the dark goddesses, or do you find that there are different elements that can be found in a multitude of goddesses who may come under the umbrella of one? And one that I have to mind is Isis. And you will find that there are a number of similar origin stories that some would suggest are related to the goddess Isis. And Isis, as you know, was the one who lost her husband Osiris, and she was able to bring him back from the dead and be able to impregnate herself and give birth to her son Horus. So we saw the carvings within the temple which showed us the story of how Isis was able to bring Osiris back. And Osiris is often pictured within the temple walls in a blue colour, which suggests that he's actually not in the land of the living. The blue colour in the Egyptian paintings suggests that the person is dead. And so that would have taken some work to bring about, wouldn't it? And the other thing that I found quite interesting is that we had two Horuses. There's the Horus who was the older Horus, who was a god who was not the son of Isis, and the younger Horus. And what I noticed with the older Horus depictions, what he although he had the similar bird head, you could see the seam of a skull marking in the carvings. The carvings were really quite intricate, and he would often be seen with his partner, who was Hathor, and there they were often mirror imaged in many of the carvings that we saw. So there's a myriad of deities within Egypt, and listening to different people telling tales about them, some of them overlap others, and some you can see, depending on how far back in time you go, embrace the stories of older deities as well. So the stories that you read, and if you're able to read hieroglyphics, then you may find that you will see many feline goddesses coming through and lion head goddesses, and that was a feature. But then if you think about it, there would have been lions coming up through Africa, and Egypt is on the African continent, so it isn't so far-fetched, is it, that they would have experienced the ferociousness of the lioness. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cauldron of Curiosities. If you enjoyed this dip into folklore, don't forget to follow the podcast, share it with a friend, and keep your lantern handy for the next curious tale.